Hello and welcome back to Tech Pro YouTube channel. Today we are going to build something real and complete. A FastAPI application that uses Ory Hydra for OAuth 2 authentication. And I mean complete. A real login from where you type your credentials, a profile page that shows your token claims, and a logout button. The full thing. Before we touch any code, I want to make sure we are aligned on what Ory Hydra is and what it is not. This will save you a lot of confusion later. Ory Hydra is an OAuth tool. Ory Hydra is an OAuth tool and OpenID connection authorization server. Its job is to issue tokens. That is it. It's not an identity provider in the sense that it doesn't store your users. It doesn't have a login page. It doesn't check password. All of that is your responsibility, which is actually the point. You get full control over the user experience. Here is how it fits together. Your FastAPI app is the OAuth 2 client. Your users interact with your FastAPI app. When someone clicks login, your app redirects them to Hydra. Hydra then redirects them back to your app's login endpoint with what is called a login challenge. Your app verifies the user's credentials however it wants, checking a database, calling an LDP-AP server, whatever, and then tells Hydra the user is authenticated by accepting the challenge via Hydra's admin API. Then Hydra sends a consent challenge to your app, asking what scopes to grant. Your app accepts that too. Then Hydra issues the authorization code and your app exchanges it for an access token. From that point on, every request to a protected route gets validated by calling Hydra's token introspection endpoint. That is the authorization code flow. It's the most secure flow for web applications. The access token never appears in the URL. The code is short-lived and single-use, and all sensitive operations happen server to server. We are going to do the whole thing. Docker Compose setup, client registration, a login form, a profile page that shows your token claims, and logout. I'm going to go straight to the code and walk through exactly what everything does and why. So in the Compose file, like I mentioned, we have 3 services. Let's go through each one. HydraDB is Postgres 14. The important part is the health check. PG is ready checks if Postgres is actually accepting connections. Without this, the migration container can fire before Postgres is ready, fail, and Hydra starts with no schema. The health check prevents that. Hydra migrate runs once. It uses condition service LD on the database, so it waits for that health check to pass before it starts. Hydra itself waits for both the database to be LD and the migration to fully complete. 2 environment variables to pay attention to in the Hydra service. Hydra runs inside Docker. When it needs to redirect the user to the login page, it makes that redirect happen in the browser. But when it needs to internally validate things, it reaches out to your app. Host Docker internal is the host name Docker uses to reach the host machine from inside a container. So this tells Hydra the login handler is on your Mac at port 8000. Your browser uses localhost 8000 because it runs on your Mac. Your FastAPI code uses localhost 4445 to reach Hydra's admin API because FastAPI also runs on your Mac, and the ports are published. Docker host internal is only the containers reaching the host. OIDC subject identifier supported types is set to public. If you add pairwise without a sort, Hydra exits immediately with a config error. Now you can bring it up using the displaying command on the screen. After doing that, you can now watch the Hydra logs. When you see it bind to 4444 and 4445, verify using this core endpoint. has been displayed on the screen. JSON back with issuer and authorization endpoint means Hydra is running. So let us move on. Every time you run Docker Compose down, the volume is wiped and the client is gone. Set up files handles that automatically. The until loop posts the admin API every seconds until it responds. Then it posts the client registration. Let me walk you through the fields that matter. We have the grant type. Authorization code is the main flow. Refresh token lets the app renew access without asking the user to log in again. We have the response type set to code. Hydra issues a short-lived authorization code. The app exchanges that code server-side for a token. The token never appears in the browser URL. Redirect URIs is a whitelist. Hydra will only redirect to URL. Hydra will only redirect to this URL on this list. If your callback URL doesn't match exactly, the request is rejected. Token endpoint auth method. Client secret basic. This means when we exchange the code for a token, the client ID and secret go in the HTTP authorization header as basic auth, not in the post body. We will see exactly how that looks in the code. Now let us make it executable. Great, that's your dev workflow with one command and we are done. To get started, you need to install the following dependencies. It's dangerous is required by session middleware. If you skip it, you will get an import error. Make sure you create an env file. Hydra admin URL is localhost 4444. Hydra admin URL port is set to 44445 because FastAPI runs on your Mac, not inside Docker. It reaches Hydra through the published port. At the top, we load config and set up the app. The middleware block has two settings that are required for localhost. HTTPS only is set to false, tells HTTPS only assign a value of false, tells Starlet to set the session cookie only on HTTP. Without it, the cookie is never written on localhost, and the session is empty on every request. Same site is set to lax, allows the cookie to be sent when the browser is redirected from Hydra back to your app. Without lax, the browser treats the Hydra redirect as a cross-site request and stripes the cookie. You lose the state you stored before the redirect, which causes invalid state errors. Both of these are localhost specific. The login handler is the most important part of the app. It does three different things depending on the situation. It gets login with no login challenge. The user hits the login URL directly and clicked sign in. Show them the form. That is it. Post login, the user submitted the form. Here's the code. We store the email in the session so the challenge handler can use it as the user's subject. We generate a random state value and store that too. We will verify it matches. Then Hydra redirects back. Then we will redirect to Hydra's authorization endpoint with our client ID, redirect URL, scopes, and the state. Status code set to 303 ensures the browser issues a get on the redirect after a post. Get login with login challenge. Hydra has processed the authorization request and redirected the user back to our login endpoint with a challenge token. We don't show a form here. We call the admin API to accept the challenge. We tell Hydra who the user is by passing their email as the subject. Hydra stores that, marks the login request as accepted, and gives us back a redirect to URL. We redirect the user there. Hydra then moves to the consent step. The consent handler is simpler. We fetch the challenge details to find out what scopes are being requested, then accept them all. In production, you do show the user a UI here listing the scopes and letting them accept or deny. For this demo, we are auto accepting everything. After consent, Hydra redirect to callback URL with the authorization code. Here's the token exchange. We first verify the state matches what we stored before the redirect. This is CSRF protection. Then the token exchange. The key line is auth having the client ID and client secret. That is HTTPX shorthand for HTTP basic auth. It encodes the credentials in the authorization header as bit 64. This is what client secret basic means. The client ID and secret do not go in the data body. If you put them there, you get an error saying the client expects basic auth but received post. We store the access token in the session and redirect to profile. Every request to profile runs through get current user. Hydra tells us whether it's still active and returns the claims. If active is false, token expire or revoked, we return 401. The profile route uses FastAPI depends method to get current user runs automatically on every request. The profile page renders those claims. The profile page renders those claims. Subject as the avatar initial, scopes as POs, issued and expires timestamps formatted from Unix timestamps and the raw access token in a scrollable box. Logout is one line. Clear the session, go home. The access token is gone from the session. The next visit to profile redirect to login. Now let us start the FastAPI. Our code is running successfully. Open HTTP localhost 8000. You see the home page with not signed in and a sign in button. Click sign in. The login form appears. Type any email and any password. The demo accepts anything, non-empty. Click sign in. Watch what happens in the terminal. Post login FastAPI stores the email and redirects to Hydra. Hydra processes the request and calls back to get login with a login challenge. FastAPI accepts it with your email as subject. Hydra calls get consent endpoint. FastAPI accepts all scopes. Hydra then redirects to get callback with the authorization code. FastAPI exchanges it for a token using basic auth. Then redirect to profile. On the profile page, your email is the subject shown in the avatar. Click sign out. Session cleared, back to home page showing not signed in. That is the full authorization code flow. We have Ory Hydra running reliably in Docker with a startup sequence that actually waits for the database before migrating and waits for the migration before starting Hydra. No risk condition, no crash loop. We registered a FastAPI application as an oauth 2 client using the admin REST API. And we put that in a set of files so that we never have to do it manually after a restart. We built a FastAPI application with a real login UI, a login handler that serves double duty as both the form page and the Hydra challenge acceptor, a consent handler, a token exchange that correctly uses HTTP basic auth, a profile page that shows token claims from introspection, and a logout that clears the session. If you want to go further from here, add Ory Kratos to a real user database with email verification, password recovery, and social login. Add a client credentials grant for machine-to-machine auth. Deploy behind traffic with TLS. Add PKCE for single-page app or mobile client. Find the link to the source code in the description. If you like this video, hit the like and subscribe button. Thank you.